I think everybody's in the group. So I think what would be helpful is we'll go around the room briefly, and if you can just sort of take a couple minutes to identify who you are and what your interest is, it will help us understand and get to know each other in a very short time. So you've heard too much about me, so I will pass it over to Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Mossman. I'm a research associate at the University of British Columbia, and I'm also here in capacity as the manager of the HIBAR Research Alliance, so helping to organize things today.
So that's the person who really does all this, in case you're wondering how this happened. Rich, you want to?
Sure, Rich Lyons. I'm at UC Berkeley, and my current role is a campus-wide role, a new role on campus. I'm the Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer for Berkeley. So thinking about how the culture and norms for promotion stimulate innovation and entrepreneurship. Prior to that, I served as Dean of the Business School at Berkeley.
Well, great. Okay. Ian McCarthy?
Hi, my name's Ian McCarthy. This is my first attendance at a HIBAR meeting. I'm a professor at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, former Fulbright scholar at Georgia Tech, looking at universities as innovation drivers, and a former engineering professor at the University of Warwick in the UK. And I'm just interested in interdisciplinarity and making how we sort of help people do research that makes a difference.
Great. I'm just calling it in the order that I see people on the screen. So Anne?
Hi, hello everybody. My last name is Anne Sui. I'm a Professor Emeritus from Arizona State University and also affiliated with the University of Notre Dame. My involvement in the recent years has been with this group called Responsible Research and Business Management, RRBM, and a few of you are involved with that as well. Our mission is very similar to HIBAR, but we focus on the business school exclusively at this point, trying to encourage rigorous research on problems that's important to society.
Great, thank you. Subhash?
Yeah, hi, this is Subhash Shinde. I'm in University of Notre Dame in Notre Dame, Indiana. I manage the Energy Center. I'm the associate director there. And as such, I work with actually pretty much all the faculty across campus in developing large scale and medium scale grant proposals with them.
Great.
Before that, just for a second, I was in Sandia National Labs, and there I was managing the solar thermal group. So what that has given me is sort of how do you transition some of the research into applications in industry? Yeah.
Fantastic. Trish?
Hi, Trish Ray. I'm at the University of Alberta in the School of Business. I'm professor and the Associate Dean Research. I'm listening to hear what I hear, and I've only heard a little bit about HIBAR from Mark David in the past, so I'm intrigued and ready to learn.
Great. Ben?
Hi, I'm Ben Schneiderman, professor at University of Maryland in computer science, but I'm at University of British Columbia as a visiting scholar for the Peter Wall Institute. And one of the reasons I came here was to spend time with Lauren Whitehead working on HIBAR. And that's been a pleasure. So HIBAR has been really taken good care of by Lauren, and I'm happy to contribute to that. My book in 2016 was called The New ABCs of Research, Achieving Breakthrough Collaborations, which tried to lay the foundations for these ideas. And Lauren was a natural partner as he was already working on these issues as well. The follow-up paper in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences documents the data that shows that projects that have the HIBAR aspect applied in basic research, as indicated by having a co-author, one co-author who was not an academic, had 5 to 8 times as many citations. So in support of Lauren's point that it builds your career, there's a tremendous advantage in terms of impact, scholarly and societally, by working in partnerships with off-campus people who are problem holders. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, there's somebody at 1779, it's a phone number, so I don't have a name or anything attached to that. Good, you came off mute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Nicholas Pajoli. I'm at the University of Michigan Herb Institute for Global Sustainable Enterprise. I study mostly business sustainability issues, and I'm part of the organizing team for the Impact Scholar community in the Academy of Management. We are working with early career researchers, trying to find ways to build impact into our work at the beginning of our careers. And I'm very interested to hear about the tenure decision process. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Michelle, what's the best way to just go into this?
Sure. I think, first of all, I don't know if people saw the pre-reading document. If not, if you have it, then that references this, but if not, it's no problem at all. I think the main question that we'd like to explore today is how does, from a tenure candidate perspective, how can a person focusing on HIBAR research indicate the strength of their research when it's very difficult to assess direct impact generally at that time, given that the evidence of impact usually takes a number of years and generally isn't available at the time of when a promotion or tenure case is put forward. So to assess how do we tackle that question in a tenure case?
So the assumption here is that when we look at, quote, HIBAR cases, the traditional things that we look at, in terms of service, et cetera, but coming back to publications is really the main indicator and the biggest problem I think we've identified. So we assume everything else to be equal. They've been great teachers, they've done their service commitment. And if they're really doing, quote, this HIBAR research, what it appears is that in the 7 years or 8 years or whatever the tenure time is in the short period, that candidate would probably present themselves with less publications. Isn't that sort of where we're at? And Ben saying no, not necessarily a problem.
No, I think that's kind of one of those scare images that I just think does not have to be true. That when you work on a team, especially with practitioners who have a short deadline, as Lauren indicated, who want to get things done, you're going to have results soon. You're going to have prompt results, and you're going to have an encouragement to publish because you want to get those results out there. And you're going to have a team, so you're going to have multiple authors. And the evidence from 50 years of studies of scientific citations shows that the multiple authors increases not just the number of citations, of course, self-citations included, but there's a tremendous advantage of 2 to 5 times as many citations for articles that are multiple authors than single authors. And the reason is not just because there are more authors, but actually more authors make for better papers. They make for a greater diversity of thinking and more effort on a project and more likely to have high results. Now, teamwork is hard, and many academics do not know how to do teamwork adequately. So one of the skills to learn is how to work together in a team. But once you've mastered that, the results you will produce are likely to be high impact and numerous. So we can get out of that. The way I like to talk about this, just I'll close by saying, is calling it POSH research, partnerships between problem owners and solution holders. And that POSH research really can accelerate impact and also scientific value. Thank you.
Your microphone off then.
Do others? Yep, go ahead, Subhash.
So yeah, I wanted to sort of rhyme with that. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I noticed when I was a PI, and my approach has always been what Ian was talking about, one of the things that, earlier, one of the things that I wanted to instill in a large project was to have 2-3 fundamental thrusts, which results in application area. But then what was important was people leading the fundamental thrusts also get the opportunity to have first author papers, because after coming into the academic environment, what I have found is that both the dean from science and engineering said, we look at first author papers. We acknowledge where you are co-authors, but that does not tell us your leadership in the field. And that's what they are looking for. So even in a applied kind of research area, there are fundamental questions that need to be addressed. If the PI for the project understands that particular way of approach for various projects and allows them to have first author papers. So I think this is something that this methodology should still need to be inculcated in the faculty who are going for large grant proposals, which are aimed at some technology or transfer of their research into something that is important for the society. And I've seen that is going forward now. I think you guys probably know that NSF is already going to have a technology directorate. So they are going to launch a NSTF going forward. So this is something I think that needs to be brought in, and the faculty need to be encouraged. And of course, the deans and the head of the departments need to sort of forward that concept of when you're in a team, have fundamental aspects to address, allow the individual class leads to have first author papers, etc.
Interesting, the concept of being on a team and always wanting to be the first author. But we'll go on. Rich?
Could I speak to that? I thank you for that comment, all of these comments. So I'm a social scientist and economist, and we tend not to, we don't work in labs generally and don't tend to write multi-authored papers, although there are many, many more co-authored papers than there were 10 years ago. But I just want to, at the end of the day, in most social science tenure cases, this idea of having done pioneering work, being the first listed author is part of how one puts their signature on an area. But what I wanted to flag is, Ben mentioned this idea of putting a team together. So for most social scientists, part of being a pioneer or having done pioneering work may evolve into, did she or he put the team together? Right? If you were able to say, these 3 projects, I put the team together, even if you don't happen to be the first author, that says something about your pioneering nature. I want to put that team creation into the the outcome itself.
That's a great thought. I want to come back to that, but I saw Trish had.
Yes, hi, thanks. I was going to say, so I'm in a business school where we have the tenure question is really revolving around a small set of journals that are deemed appropriate for a publication. And if you have publications in that small set, you're great. And if you don't, you're not. It's actually I'm not saying I'm proud of all this, but that is the reality. We don't care about multiple authors. It doesn't matter where you come on the list, as long as you have a publication in the prestigious or quasi-prestigious journals. So I guess impact also doesn't count much at tenure. We don't expect that people would be able to show impact either in citations or in the other more community or other kinds of impact. We would be looking for that more at promotion to full. So, so I guess what I'm saying is, at the moment, it's a nice to have, but not essential.
Right. So it's not essential on the impact, but it is essential to be in the right journals.
Yes.
Ian?
So one of the things that's just occurred to me listening to the opening presentation and these conversations is, in addition to asking for the right information, the fact that this research straddles applied versus discovery research, straddles doing stuff for academics and other stakeholders. I would imagine that tenure letters would come from non-academics. They would come from different stakeholders. And even tenure committees might have non-academics on them, and they would have stakeholders who could actually talk to the value, the other side of. So when you look at the original sort of, there was this slide that showed sort of pure academic research on one side and applied research on the other side. The letters, the committee is all stacked on the left, and the committee and the letters pays no regard to the right. And so, if you're only hoping that the candidate can squeeze on their package somewhere that someone's going to read, oh, I'm doing stuff on the right, and believe me, it's important, but the people in the room and the letters don't give a two hoots about it, they're going to struggle.
Does any tenure committee have non-faculty members on it today? Do any of the universities have any of those?
So we are quickly trying to get into that. It's not happening yet. We do have a idea center that was established, and that has now taken some prominence in terms of innovation. And I believe that it will happen in future, but especially the College of Science is somewhere where we have the mentality that first author paper in reputed science magazines are are needed. So engineering is somewhat softer on that, but yeah.
Very interesting. It was a great point, though, and it's interesting because when you think of a partnership, then you think of, here's an article in the New York Times, or here's something would not fit in that.
Well, if you look at the framework says about having external partners. But if the evaluation part doesn't actually practice what it preaches, then it's going to struggle to actually recognize that.
Great point. This is great. This is exciting. Keep going. Who's
That's
next?
all I have at the moment. I'm exhausted.
Exactly. Nicholas, you want to jump in?
I'm not sure that I have a lot to offer because I'm just not senior and have not gone through a tenuring process. But one thing that I have done is, as part of the Impact Scholar community, we've started reaching out to the senior scholars and asking them how they evaluate impact in tenure making processes. And we have gotten some comments from particularly North American scholars that impact can actually be harmful. If you're shown, and what they said was, if it appears that you spend a lot of time on Twitter and you're trying to engage with non-academic endeavors, it can actually harm you. So that's about the only thing that I think is relevant to the conversation that I can contribute right now. Thank you for the opportunity.
That's very relevant because, again, so I do social entrepreneurship, as many of the others in the room do, and you have to be out there, and that's not necessarily within the walls of the university or within the, quote, selected journals. So that's a very insightful and helpful comment. So thank you. Trish, are you?
Yeah, I'm waving.
I thought you were just saying hi to me.
Yeah, well, that too. I guess I just wanted to add, so in my own research, which branches over into the healthcare system a great deal, it's kind of more like that's tolerated as long as you do the other things that you need to do academically. And so I would say that partnerships have been important to me because they generate the kind of research that leads to quality publications. So it's more like a means to different ends. And the partnerships themselves can be problematic at the university, where crossing faculty boundaries is quite difficult to navigate, and the incentive structure is not set up for it. So I mean, I'm trying to find some ways around that myself, because on the one hand, we encourage faculty to cross the boundaries, and on the other hand, we make it difficult for them to hold money that crosses the boundaries, and a number of other things. So, you know, I believe that the kind of research you're promoting with HIBAR needs the cross-faculty kind of ideas, and things that can be done to facilitate that, I think, would be really helpful for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I think that's an important question to deal with, because at least in universities I've been in, the total grant goes to where the PI's department is. They get all the overhead. And so the quote other partners and their departments don't find an incentive in that bit. So I see we have 3 minutes left. Anne and Rich have not spoken, so let me go to them first. And then if there's time, I'll come back to you then. Anne?
Thank you for asking me to say what's on my mind. This is a question that RBM has been struggling with for the last 5 years. How to measure societal impact of faculty's research and how to make the system recognize that. There's some progress and more actions on how to measure impact or how to call attention to the importance and impact. Some of the deans in the business schools actually saying that they would be beginning to ask the faculty in the annual review to document at a page what has been the societal impact of their research as a starting point. So as that becomes part of the routine, that question is one of the annual review questions. Eventually, they believe they're working its way into the tenure review process, because you're asking that question every year. By the time they come out in 5 years, they have enough attention paid to that, and that's hopefully enough sort of real concrete outcomes. So it'll take time, but so that's one way of beginning to include that dimension. And then as far as what's the metric, one idea that we've been working with right now is to look at some of the sort of existing challenges everybody recognizes and agrees are important. For example, the United States SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. It's got something for everybody. All disciplines can contribute to it. So it's to see whether your research addresses any of these problems, okay? So that way the faculty can be encouraged to look at that and start working on some problems. They can write about that afterwards, and then the school begin to see that, wow, we are making some contribution to those areas, and as a way that it kind of beginning the process, virtual cycle begins. So that's where the conversation's been mostly about in the recent months and recent weeks. So there's small progress, but it's not intractable. It's not an incorrectable problem. We just have to find a way to do it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's a good way to talk impact and the goals, because you're right. There's something in there for everybody. Mm-hmm. Rich?
Rich Lyons or Rich Berman?
Rich Lyons, because Rich Berman's always talking.
Well, I did speak earlier. I mentioned about the teams and the
right.
But one other thing I would add is a natural question at tenure time, which HIBAR might help to answer, is what is the trajectory of this agenda, right? People want to know that an agenda has legs. And I think a HIBAR agenda is a little bit easier to paint a picture of how the future might play out.
Well, I think that's good. We have 49 seconds, unless Michelle has the problem of trying to identify our 3 or 4 points to go forward. But you've also been very quiet at this point. So.
Oh no, I've been taking notes and I will share them. Richard, should I email them to you? Would that be the best thing?
Sure, that's good. Thank you. Okay. Ben, you got the last 20 seconds.
No, all the concerns that were raised are legitimate ones. We've heard them all before, but people should know things are changing. 45 North American universities have changed tenure policies to include patents, for example, as an important feature. And we see a steady growth of
Hey there.
Okay. Lauren, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
And I unmuted. Host. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Hey. It's so funny that so many of us, you know, I'm a visiting professor in the business college on social entrepreneurship, but it's so interesting that so many of the people in the discussions have been in the entrepreneur side of the house. I didn't realize that until I sort of went through everybody.